The marketplace was alive with heat, light, and the scent of metals not found on Earth. Towers of alien stone loomed over tented stalls, where merchants whispered in languages humanity had barely begun to decode. This wasn't some corner of a distant galaxy. This was Earth, or what remained of it. Since the Pax Accord between humanity and the Verilians, Earth had been open to trade, diplomacy, and ceremony. Today was one such ceremony. But beneath the layers of ritual, the air was heavy with distrust. Simon stood in the center of it all, his armored boots clicking against the polished obsidian floor. Once a field tactician, now Earth's official delegate to alien relations, he had seen peace built from war and smiles carved from teeth. He didn't like ceremonies, especially not the kind where the other side smiled too much. Across from him, flanked by crimson guards in etched metal, stood General Kosharn of the Verilian Empire. Towering, muscle-bound, his skin glimmered like burnished stone. But his grin, that wide, too-perfect curve, was what made Simon uneasy. "Gift exchange time," Kosharn declared, arms flung open like a showman. Simon tensed. Earth's gift had been a solar reactor core, advanced, stable, and symbolically priceless. A product of Earth's last remaining unity. The Verilian gift, however, remained hidden. Until now. With a theatrical flourish, Kosharn turned and pulled aside a shimmering veil. Behind it stood a girl. But she wasn't a girl, not really. She was Verilian or something close. Her skin was a cool, pearlescent blue, almost glowing under the filtered sunlight that spilled through the archways. Silver-white hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her eyes, they didn't shimmer like a soldier's. They watched, calm and unafraid, as if she had already measured the room and every soul in it. She stepped forward with elegance, not forced, not trembling. She carried a sealed box in her hands, metallic and locked, its surface carved with alien markings. But no one was looking at the box. All eyes were on her. "This," Kosharn said, voice booming with pride, "is Alf. She is not merely a gift. She is a gesture of goodwill, of understanding. A living representative of our kind. Taught in your ways. Curious of your world. She will stay among you, learn from you, be part of you." Whispers sparked like fire through the human side of the crowd. A living gift? Was this diplomacy or dominance dressed in silk? Simon stared at her. She stared back without blinking. No fear. No plea. "This wasn't part of the agreement," Simon said carefully. Kosharn only chuckled. "Ah, but diplomacy is like love, Simon. It must evolve." Simon was ready to reject the offer outright. He could already imagine the reaction back at headquarters. Outrage. Debate. Division. Earth had never accepted a sentient being as a ceremonial object. Not even in the worst days of war. But then Alf spoke. Her voice was soft, measured. "I chose this," she said. Simon didn't move. The weight of her words cut through the noise, through the room, through him. "I wanted to come here," she added. "To your world. Not to serve. Not to spy. To see." Simon narrowed his eyes. "See what?" Alf tilted her head. "What makes humans so unbreakable?" He didn't know whether it was a challenge or a compliment. And somehow he didn't care. She wasn't a prisoner. And yet she wasn't free. And for reasons Simon couldn't explain, not then, not yet, he didn't walk away. He simply nodded. "Then welcome to Earth, Alf." Around them, trade resumed. Words flew. Credits changed hands. But a different kind of transaction had just taken place. One no treaty had outlined, no advisor had prepared for. Simon had accepted a gift. Or maybe he'd just met the most dangerous woman on the planet. The compound assigned to Alf was located just beyond the inner ring of New Geneva, Earth's central diplomatic district. It was modern, quiet, and surrounded by invisible walls thick with surveillance tech. But it wasn't a cell, at least not officially. Simon didn't trust the setup. And he trusted Alf even less. She moved like someone trained to study a room before breathing in it. She never asked questions casually. Her silence felt heavier than her words. Yet something about her didn't match the profile of a covert operative. Spies didn't smile at birds or spend hours staring at books she couldn't read. Simon watched through the one-way glass as she stood in the courtyard, head tilted toward the artificial sky panel that simulated Earth's sun. She closed her eyes as if listening to something far away. Maybe she was. Maybe this whole thing was performance art for the next wave of infiltration. But then she spoke. "You don't blink when you lie." Simon blinked. She was behind him now, standing at the threshold of the observation room. No sound. No alert. Just her voice, smooth as static and sharper than curiosity. "You've been monitoring me," she said simply. "Standard protocol, I assume. You're a diplomatic gift wrapped in mystery and classified tech," Simon replied without turning. "What did you expect? A gift bag?" Simon smirked despite himself. Alf stepped forward. Her eyes swept the room, not with suspicion, but with wonder. "You record everything, even when nothing is happening. You're afraid of quiet moments." "No," Simon replied. "We're afraid of what hides inside them." He finally faced her, arms folded across his chest. "Tell me something, Alf. Why really are you here?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she walked to the edge of the room and placed her hand against the glass. It didn't react. She wasn't trying to escape, just feeling. "When I was young," she said quietly, "I was told your species were animals. Violent, crude, uncontrollable." "That's about right," Simon muttered. "But then," she continued, "they showed me a broadcast from your world. A human alone hurt was helping another with no reward. Just instinct, empathy. The concept fascinated me. You risked everything to explore a moral theory?" "I risked everything," she said, locking eyes with him, "because I started dreaming in your language." Simon didn't have an answer to that. Over the next few days, Alf wasn't confined. Simon, under subtle orders from command, was tasked with guiding her, which meant shadowing her every move, feeding reports into a secured line, and waiting for the first misstep. But she didn't misstep. She observed everything. The way children shouted and laughed. The way people leaned in when they whispered. She asked questions Simon never expected. Why do humans shake hands? Why does sadness sound different in every language? Why do you fear silence? In return, she shared fragments of her own culture. Her people didn't dream. They stored memory externally. Emotions were considered data noise, cleaned or contained. Art, love, rebellion, these were glitches in their system, punished or erased. She called humans gloriously unstable. One night, during a power outage in the compound, Simon found her sitting beneath a skylight as real starlight poured in. "I can't go back," she said. He didn't ask what she meant. He knew. She was never meant to survive this long on Earth. She was likely marked the moment she crossed into human territory. Her gift status had probably expired the second she said something unscripted. Simon sat beside her. "So what now?" She glanced at him, then back at the stars. "Now I choose." "Choose what?" "Whether I become one of you, or watch you from afar like the rest of my kind." Simon studied her face, not alien now, not entirely. She was something in between, a mirror of everything Earth had become. Stitched from pain, bound by conflict, still capable of surprise. "Either way," he said, "you'll never fully belong." "Neither will you," she replied softly. There were no security feeds in that room. No reports to file. No recordings to replay. Just two beings. Not soldier and asset, not spy and guardian. Just Simon and Alf. Sitting under stars neither fully claimed. Bound by a world they didn't trust, but were willing to fight for. And in that silence, something wordless passed between them. Not love. Not yet. But something older. Recognition. It began with a satellite going dark over the Pacific. Simon was in a briefing when the alert came through. A low-orbit surveillance unit had ceased transmitting. A simple malfunction, the tech team claimed. Coincidence. But Simon had seen too many coincidences during wartime to believe in them now. By the end of the week, 2 more satellites blinked out. Then, an encrypted defense relay in New Helsinki was breached, and restored before anyone could trace the origin. Subtle enough to be brushed off as technical noise. But someone was testing the system, probing it, and the timing couldn't be ignored. It was 2 weeks since Alf had arrived. Simon reviewed the security logs from her compound 3 times. Nothing out of place. No unauthorized comms. No hidden transmitters. No backdoors. She had access to limited systems, the AI monitored her feed traffic, and nothing was flagged. Still, something didn't feel right. One night, while she was in the learning wing, Simon entered her quarters. He didn't need permission. He told himself it was protocol. The room was clean, sparse, personal only in strange ways. A feather she'd found during a walk. A crumpled ticket from a human museum. A broken pair of earphones she hadn't thrown away. But it was the sketch that stopped him. Drawn on an old notepad, one of the last paper pads left in the building, was a crude map of Earth's orbital grid. Human defense satellites. Major comm nodes. It was rough, childlike. But it was unmistakable. Before he could react, a voice came from behind him. "You didn't knock." He turned. Alf stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Not shocked. Not afraid. Just watching. Simon held up the notepad. "What is this? I thought you'd ask." "Start talking." Alf stepped inside. She sat at the edge of the bed and gestured for him to sit too. He didn't. "I drew that 2 days ago," she said. "From memory. My memory." "You memorized Earth's defense systems?" "They were uploaded into me when I was young," she said flatly. "In case I ever made it to this planet. It's part of what I am." Simon narrowed his eyes. "So you are a spy?" She met his gaze. "No. I was designed to be one. But I rejected the program 3 cycles ago. My people didn't delete me. But they made sure I would be alone if I ran." Simon paced, fists clenched. "Then why come here at all? Why pretend to be some goodwill gesture?" "I didn't pretend," she said. "They did." She stood now, walking toward him with slow, careful steps. "The truth is, I volunteered for the exchange. They didn't know what to do with me, so they offered me as a symbol. I knew Earth wouldn't trust me. I didn't expect it to. But I had to see it. The place I wasn't allowed to dream about." Simon's voice was low. "You're telling me you came here, carrying the mental blueprints of Earth's defense grid, without an agenda?" "I'm telling you," she said. "I came here with a choice, and I haven't made it yet." He stared at her for a long moment. Everything in him wanted to call her in. But there was something in her eyes again. Not fear, not manipulation. Shame. Alf reached into the folds of her tunic and pulled out a small chip. "If I wanted to attack this world, I wouldn't need maps. I just need this." Simon took it, ran it through his scanner. Null. Dead code. Wiped. Alf whispered. It held a key to one of the comm relays. "I erased it 2 days after arriving." "Why?" he asked. "Because I realized I wanted to protect this place more than report on it." Simon sat down finally, not out of trust, but because everything inside him felt heavier. "You know I can't just ignore this," he said. "I don't want you to," she replied. "I want you to decide not as a soldier, as Simon." He looked at the map again. The feather. The broken earphones. Something inside him cracked. Not enough to break. Just enough to let in a sliver of doubt. Or hope. In the coming days, the satellite failures stopped. But whispers inside Earth Command grew louder. Alf's presence wasn't just political anymore. It was personal. Dangerous. And the question hanging in the air wasn't what she was. It was what Simon was willing to become. Because of her. The call came at 2:13, coded through a secure line Simon hadn't used since the end of the war. Authorization override. Subject Alf is to be detained immediately. Intelligence confirms potential pre-activated neural triggers. Extraction in T-4 hours. That was it. No appeal. No room for discretion. Earth Command had made its move. Simon stared at the message, jaw clenched. Outside, in the quiet halls of the compound, artificial birds still chirped. Security drones still floated calmly. unaware that everything was about to change. He didn't wait for dawn. He found Alf sitting in the greenhouse room, staring at a blooming earth rose. It had taken weeks to coax that plant from soil too sterile and recycle to nourish anything real. But she had managed it, carefully, quietly, as if willing life into it with her presence. "We don't have time," Simon said. She looked up at him. "I know." He hesitated. "How?" She held up a palm-sized chip, glowing faintly. "I intercepted their signal. For hours, right?" Simon nodded. "Maybe less." Alf stood, brushed her hand along a leaf, and turned to him. "No fear, just resignation." "I wondered how long it would take," she said. "I lasted longer than I thought." "You don't sound surprised." "I was designed to be erased." Simon didn't ask what she meant. He didn't want to hear it in words. He just pulled a data key from his jacket and activated the lockdown bypass codes. Doors clicked open one by one. The system didn't scream in protest. "Not yet." He looked at her. "You're coming with me. Won't that make you a traitor?" "I stopped being a soldier the moment I started asking questions Earth Command didn't want answered." She didn't smile. She just followed. They left through the subterranean tunnels once reserved for diplomats and escape contingencies that were never used until now. Simon had memorized the exits years ago, never believing he'd use them to run from his own people. Alf stayed quiet, her eyes scanning every corridor, every pulse of red light as if she were absorbing it all for the last time. Not to report, just to remember. They surfaced at the edge of Old City ruins, a place long abandoned and mostly forgotten, its structures half buried under sand, overgrowth and silence. Here the drones couldn't track. Here Earth had no reach. For now. Simon collapsed against a broken pillar, breath sharp in his chest. Alf sat beside him, back straight, scanning the skyline. "They'll find us eventually," she said. "I know. You could still turn me in." He looked at her. "You still think I want to?" Alf's expression softened. "I don't know what you want." "I didn't either," Simon said, voice low. "But you've changed that." They sat in silence for a moment. Not awkward. Not afraid. Just still. Then she turned to him. "Do you trust me?" He hesitated, not because he doubted her now, but because saying yes would mean crossing a line he couldn't uncross. "Yes." Alf exhaled like she'd been holding that breath for days. "Then I need to show you something." Inside the small case she had once carried as part of the gift exchange, a device lay hidden under the false bottom, small, crystalline, humming faintly. Simon reached for his weapon, but she stopped him. "It's not a weapon," she said. "It's a message." She activated it. A hologram burst to life. Alien code swirled in the air. And then came a voice. Not hers, not Kosharn's, but someone else. A female voice. Cold. Controlled. "This message is for Agent Alftera. If this is playing, your defection is confirmed. Protocol Theta 4 will activate. Any human contact must be terminated. Return for neural cleansing. Your memory will be reset. Resistance is futile." The message ended. Simon stared at her. "They embedded this in my genetics. A kill switch. For myself. You've been carrying that around?" "I didn't know it could activate on its own. Until now." Simon stood, pacing, thinking. "That's why they want you back. Not to question you. To erase you." "Yes. And if I help you survive, they'll erase you too." Simon met her gaze. "Then we better make it worth it." That night, as sirens howled faintly in the far distance and the skies darkened with storm drones searching the horizon, they lay beneath a rusted rooftop in the broken heart of what was once a great city. Neither spoke much, but Alf reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. The storm came at sunrise, not from the sky, but from the west, where Earth Command's armored skimmers cut across the abandoned city like vultures made of steel and fire. Low hovering, silent, deadly. And with them, emissaries from the Virelian Council, come to collect what they still believed was theirs. Simon and Alf didn't run. Not this time. They stood together atop the crumbled steps of the old world, in the heart of what was once the Parliament Dome. It had no roof now, No walls. Just exposed beams of twisted metal and open sky above them. Fitting, Simon thought, the perfect place for the truth to be heard. Alf activated the transmitter. Seconds later, every satellite still loyal to Earth's independent broadcast network was hijacked. Every screen, every comm wall, every civilian device lit up across the globe and across the orbiting Verilian fleet. Simon stepped into frame. "This is Simon Cade," he said, voice firm. "Former military, current disgrace. I'm standing with someone Earth was never meant to meet. Not like this. Not under lies." He turned slightly. Alf came into view. "She was offered to us as a symbol," he continued, "as a gift. But she was carrying something more powerful than any weapon." Alf held up the crystalline core. "This device," she said, "contains a neural code designed to erase me if I disobeyed, to strip my identity, my thoughts, even my memories, because I chose to understand you. And that made me dangerous." The message shifted. Pre-recorded data began to play. Spliced together transmissions, intercepted Verilian orders, even internal Earth command discussions leaked from Simon's secure channel. Everything laid bare. No edits. No spin. A conspiracy to manipulate peace. A plan to use Alf as both a bridge and a bomb. Within minutes, the world saw it all. Down below, the search units faltered. Orders were paused. Drones hovered, awaiting new instructions. Not because of confusion, but because the lie had cracked. And the crack was growing. On the diplomatic floor in New Geneva, emergency lights flickered to blue, the signal that truth had reached public frequency. Couldn't be buried now. Earth's population, already strained by alien diplomacy, divided by propaganda, began to speak. Millions commented, protested, recorded, demanded, and something strange happened in orbit. The Verilian ships, cold and calculating, shifted formation. They weren't preparing to fire. They were preparing to listen. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the fractured skyline, Simon and Alf sat beneath the twisted ribs of the old dome. They hadn't been captured. Not yet. And for the first time in weeks, they weren't hiding. "Did we win?" Alf asked. Simon leaned back, watching a drone pass silently overhead. Not scanning, just passing. "No," he said, "but we're still here. That's something." She smiled faintly. "You risked your life for me. You rewrote yours for us," he replied. A beat passed, then another. "I'm not human," she said. "I know. I'll never be fully one of you." "Good," he said. "We've got enough humans." She looked at him. "Then what am I to you?" Simon didn't answer immediately. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A worn-down, half-melted identification badge. His old one. From the military unit he no longer served. He placed it in her hand. "Your turn," he said. "Trade something." Alf looked at the object, then at him. Slowly, she removed the feather, the one from the compound garden, and tucked it into his coat. A new kind of exchange. Not metal for metal, not power for power, but peace for peace, truth for truth. As night fell across the broken city, satellites continued to blink with new signals. Not just broadcasts, but conversations. Civilian to alien. Questions. Invitations. Words unfiltered by governments. Something had shifted. The old world had tried to erase what it couldn't understand. But the new one had just begun to listen. And in the silence that followed, a rose bloomed again. In the cracks of steel and memory.